The second point that has to be made is he's a drug cheat. This is twice. Can he play well without steroids? That's something we don't know.
What's up guys, Derek, moreplaysmoredays.com. Today we are going to be talking about Robinson Cano. So this is a post I was tagged in on the ESPN page. It is the second PED suspension for Cano, who missed 80 games in 2018 after testing positive for a diuretic while with the Mariners. So in this tweet, Jeff Passan says, breaking, New York Mets second baseman Robinson Cano has tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug and will be suspended for the entire 2021 season. Sources familiar with the situation tell ESPN he will forfeit a $24 million salary. New story will be up soon at ESPN. So a bunch of people tagged me in this. And if you go to the ESPN story, New York Mets, Robinson Cano banned for 2021 MLB season because of PED. This isn't the first time, but what he tested positive for back in 2018 was not, in fact, a synthetic anabolic steroid. And, you know, the experts in the baseball world do not seem to understand that, but it certainly doesn't bode well. Like I'm, you know, pretty fucking sure the guy's been using gear throughout the entirety of his career. This is the first time he's actually getting popped for a synthetic anabolic agent. The thing he got popped for before was not a synthetic anabolic steroid. It was a diuretic, like the first post said. And then this guy, I guess some sort of sports newscaster dude, this is what he says.
The second point that has to be made is he's a drug cheat. This is twice. Can he play well without steroids? That's something we don't know.
So he says, can he play well without steroids? It's something we don't know. And it's like, well, I guess, like, but I mean, he's basically asserting that his first test result was also for steroids. And it's like, you can't really prove that he did take steroids that time. But I'll say it's very likely though. So, but still, you know, I don't know. For some of these guys, they should look at what these drugs are before they start to comment on them. But so anyway, it's his second PED suspension. He's 38 years old. Missed 80 games in 2018 when he was playing for the Seattle Mariners. We were extremely disappointed to be informed about Robinson's suspension for violating MLB's Joint Drug Prevention and Treatment Program. Mets president Sandy Alderson said in a statement, the violation is very unfortunate for him, the organization, our fans, and the sport. The Mets fully support MLB's efforts toward eliminating performance-enhancing substances from the game. There was no immediate comment from Cano or the Players Union. A second positive test results in an automatic 162-game suspension according to the joint drug agreement between MLB and the MLB Players Association. He forfeits his $24 million salary, which is fucking insane. Cano was traded to the Mets, blah, 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 blah. So, let's see. He previously signed a 10-year, $240 million deal with the Mariners. He has 2 years and $48 million remaining on his contract. The Mariners will pay down $7.5 million of that. So, as far as what he tested positive for, so this time, it was not a diuretic. It was, in fact, a synthetic anabolic steroid, and it was Stanozolol. So according to a statement from the MLB, the drug Cano tested positive for is the steroid Stanozolol. So if you don't know Stanozolol, it is the actual drug name for Winstrol. And you probably are more familiar with Winstrol. That is the infamous drug from the 90s that Ben Johnson tested positive for in the 100-meter sprint. So in a tweet by Tim Healy, he basically confirms it's official. Robinson Cano tested positive for a PED Stanozolol and is suspended for the entire 2021 season. This is his second PED offense. And then just, you know, a whole bunch of articles coming out of the woodwork talking about this because this is a big deal in the MLB right now. This guy just gave up a ton of money on the table to take this compound. So I'm sort of going to dig into why this compound would be even used, why it would make any sense whatsoever, or what was going through this guy's head. So when you look at the comment section for the tweets, Mets don't have to pay him, right? Can they void his contract? He forfeits his salary for the season. It's his suspension without pay. I think 2020 has negatively affected everybody in the world except the Mets. This is wonderful news. Absolutely. He was a complete bottleneck at 2B. Now keep McNeil there permanently or go get DJ. I know nothing about baseball, so I have no idea what the fuck these guys are talking about. Do the Mets save money with this, or does his salary just go from Mets to MLB? Good riddance. This actually improves the Mets. Once a roid head, always a roid head. Nice little gif here of sick dude. Let's see what else. Explain how 24 million in freed cap space is a hit, especially for a declining out of shape player. Christmas comes early with a $24 million gift. That's real Muto money. Okay, so anyways, as far as testing goes, the thing that's interesting about 2020 is the fact that testing was way more lax. So you would think, you know, a lot of athletes did very likely take advantage of this lack of testing to really push the envelope. Like normally in the off season, you'd be shocked that some of these leagues do not do random drug testing for half of the year. In fact, they only do it for in the season when you show up for spring training, and then throughout the season you get like one random test, and it's like a really shitty one. So like for the MLB, for example, each player is tested upon reporting to spring training. All players will be selected for an unannounced urine specimen collection during the season on a randomly selected date. So you're tested once when you show up to spring training after your entire offseason that you just sauced your fucking face off and cleared everything out of your system. And then after you pass spring training and you do your initial test, you now have until the actual season to theoretically do whatever you want. And then once the season starts, you get randomly tested one more time with scientifically validated urine test using gas chromatography with mass spectrometry for synthetic metabolites that you could otherwise very easily clear out of your system if you know the pharmacokinetic profiles of the compounds that you're going to be testing for, and or you know how to leverage bioidentical hormones in an intelligent way and get it out of your system in time. So it's very, very lax. And you would have to be very, very, very dumb or just not forward thinking to not have, mathed it out essentially. Like the clearance time of these compounds is pretty well established in the literature to the point where you should be able to calculate with reasonable accuracy what kind of window you have of clearance time. So is this just a miscalculation based on, pushing the envelope during the spring training time that you otherwise would have been tested, and you think you can just sauce all the way through it up until the regular season because of the, quarantine and whatnot? Because in fact, during quarantine, MLB teams can schedule 3 spring training games before opening day. What happened was, this is back in June 25th, 2020, an article on the Bleacher Report. And basically it says right here, the season has been on hold because of the, MLB announced, I don't want to say it because of the algorithm. MLB announced on March 12th that spring training was canceled and that opening day would be delayed indefinitely. So this was in June. So if you're told as an athlete on March 12th, hey, by the way, that spring training test that you normally have, you're not going to have it. And in fact, you have several months to continue to crank your face off like you were just doing in the off season. So all of a sudden, these guys have a literal, almost year-long off season that they could take advantage of. So, would this guy, potentially not think in his head, oh shit, I can really push the envelope this time because I have all this extra time and all of this extra window that I can clear these compounds into my system but still take advantage of them during this otherwise, spring training period. And I think that's exactly what happened, to be honest, because a lot of people would ask, why would you use stanozolol? What would be the sense in using a compound like that? Especially for something that is known for its deleterious effects on joint and ligament integrity. You probably know, if you know anything about bodybuilding pharmacology, that Winstrol is not exactly the ideal compound to use for somebody who depends on their joint staying intact. You know what I mean? Yes, it can drive high force production and not really bulk you up or anything like that. Keeps you light on your feet, keeps you fucking, it's a good clean, dry mass strength gainer and muscle growth agent. But the fact remains that it is one of the worst compounds there is for degradation to your tendon and ligament health. It's just one of the, the drying out effect of Winstrol is essentially what can lead to this, like increased probability of injury in the gym, or if you're a baseball player and you depend on fast twitch movements that could otherwise fucking injure you, like chucking a ball as hard as you can, as quick as possible. Like you would not want to be using stanozolol as your ideal compound. You'd want to be using something like nandrolone maybe would be good to add in there. However, the detection time of these compounds is significantly different. So obviously you are a bit more limited in what you can choose, and you can't exactly just pick out the most ideal agent based on exactly what is most conducive to whatever performance vectors you're trying to drive with, keeping into account side effects. And this is why, just fucking approving drugs for performance enhancing use would be better, because then they wouldn't have guys using shittier steroids for their particular sport and putting themselves in, a more compromised position and using compounds they may not even want to use just because they have to get it out of their system in time to beat some stupid test. So anyway, stanozolol is one of the fastest clearing compounds, so it is something that is often leveraged in a performance enhancing context. Even if it's not necessarily the ideal choice, it's something that you can at least plan to get out of your system quicker than a lot of the other compounds. So that is where my logic is thinking that is what he was thinking. My assumption is that he's thinking, what can I really push the envelope with and then get out of my system super quickly whenever the season starts? Because, indefinitely, we don't know when the shit's starting. Could start at any time. So let's just blast my face off until that time and then get the shit out of my system and just go into there and just crush shit. So, stanozolol, one of the faster clearing compounds, and clearly not fast clearing enough, or he just didn't do the math properly and didn't account for the full clearance time, evidently, because he did indeed pop for it and it's now biting him in the ass. And a lot of people, I always see comments like, why would somebody risk their entire career to use something that offers a minimal advantage? Or why would a fucking soccer player use a performance enhancing drug? Or why would a baseball player use it? Why would they risk their entire career and millions of dollars just to use this thing that may have some benefit to their performance, but not nearly enough to justify putting their entire career on the line? It's bro, they fucking do. That's just what they do. They want to be the best in their sport and they want to make the most money. They want to be the best athlete they can possibly be. And when you're given these fucking lax testing parameters where you literally don't even have testing throughout the spring training because you have this event happening that pretty much gives everyone a green light to do whatever they want, and all of a sudden the off season is no longer 5 or 6 months. All of a sudden it's fucking 9 to 10 months. Would you as a professional athlete not also think, I should probably take advantage of the fact that every other athlete in the world right now in my same sport is probably taking advantage of this and I'm not? These guys, they do. And this is why this guy's losing a $24 million payout now, because he wanted to take some Winstrol. So all these guys in the comments that want to say, why would an athlete risk that? That doesn't happen. There's drug testing. They can't get around it. It's people are still popping for this shit. And when you actually get into the nitty gritty of how easy it is to actually get around some of these really obviously planned tests, it's it's just not planning to clear out of your system. It's a complete accident when you get popped. It's not you just decided to take it this one time and you happen to get caught. It's no, you've probably been doing it every fucking season and you just fucked up this time and you didn't plan it well. That is probably what happened. I wouldn't be surprised if this guy sauced every single season throughout his entire career, to be honest. So, but that's not just him. I would imagine tons of the other athletes in the league too. So as far as his choice of compounds, obviously, in my opinion, not an ideal choice for a baseball player. However, when you're looking at fast-acting synthetics, it's how many choices do you really have if you don't have some designer chemist creating some fucking Frankenstein compound for you that does not have a assay to check for its metabolites and whatnot? You're kind of limited in your choices. But that's sort of where I would look at bioidentical hormones at that point and see presumably they're still using these same kind of IOC cutoffs that you see in all of these other sports and the same testing parameters you see for testosterone, epitestosterone and whatnot. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people are leveraging microdose testosterone to kind of circumvent this. It seems like a no-brainer over something like Winstrol, in my opinion. the testing window is going to be shorter too. So I don't really know, like I think this just boils down to poor compound selection and poor timing. Like to me, this is not a compound I would choose for a baseball player, nor just because of the fast clearance time. Obviously, if you don't plan it well, it doesn't fucking matter how fast it clears. And above and beyond that, it's just not really the ideal choice. Like obviously, when you really get into what would be the best stack for a baseball player, you're probably not gonna be able to use the best stack, but there's probably a way to design something better than what this guy did. So like for me, I would look at least at fucking GH2. Like maybe he was on GH. There's probably tons of other athletes in the league on GH2. But I mean, like Winstrol, like fuck, it's probably not a good choice in my opinion. So anyways, that's my stance on the Cano story with the Winstrol. And a lot of people have been asking me about it. That is my stance on the compound selection. Essentially boils down, in my opinion, to off-season is longer for an indefinite time frame because of the canceled spring training or whatever. No testing due to the you-know-what. A bunch of people have the green light to sauce their faces off. They don't know when the season's starting. Everyone goes ham. And then this guy just plans his drug stack way too poorly. The pharmacokinetics are not taken into account as well as they should have been. Has lingering metabolites still there. Gets tested, gets fucked over. $24 million out the window. That's my stance. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. All the comments help the algorithm. They're much appreciated. If you want to get my deep dives into bodybuilding pharmacology, I advise you subscribe to the newsletter. It's the first link in the description below. You're not going to get sent those updates unless you sign up for that. And the articles are far more elaborate and in-depth than my videos with all of the citations to the clinical studies I reference for if you want to delve into it further for your own personal research. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below, my TRT clinic, as well as Gorilla Mind, Nootropic, and Gorilla Mode pre-workout formulas. I designed myself from scratch based on exactly what I would want to see in these formulas as a consumer. Back in the day, I used to mix all this shit up in a kitchen when I was in university and just, buy all the raw ingredients separately. And I knew when I started my own company, I would want to choose the efficacious dosages and synergies of certain ingredients, so then you wouldn't have to actually go out and buy bulk ingredients on your own to create an actual effective formula. And that's where we came out with Gorilla Mode Nitric, Gorilla Mode Stem, and this is like actual efficacious dosages at the top end of the reference range, as opposed to minimum effective dose like in the L-citrulline. We don't just have the bare minimum scraping the fucking bottom of the barrel of 6 grams of citrulline malate inflated with malic acid. We have 9 to 10 grams of pure L-citrulline with malic acid added separately, not artificially inflating the citrulline content, among a myriad of other examples of maxed out dosages and very potent combinations of ingredients, all handpicked by myself. So if that interests you, I compel you to just check out your current pre, compare the label to ours, and it becomes pretty obvious pretty quickly why we are becoming a head and shoulders leader in this industry for pre-workout formulas as well as supplements in general. So if you want to support that, check it out. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.